Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Read and Reread. I am Angelia, and today it is time for Friday Reads on May 17th. I just filmed about the first couple minutes of this video and with it on the picture taking setting, not the camera setting, the video setting. And I've seen other videos where people did that. They didn't know they were not actually filming, and then like after a couple of minutes, if you have it on, it times out and the screen goes back to the main menu. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that is pretty par for the course this morning. I woke up about an hour later than I usually do, and it's raining and thunderstorming, and I'm behind, I'm off kilter. I don't know what is going on. And then I took a long time getting going this morning, but there wasn't really any reason to rush. And then I had this excellent assistant. I'll put a picture here of the help I got setting up for the video from Moo, who is visiting right now. My daughter's off on a little trip. And I'm allergic to cats, so that's part of this. It's the weather and the cat and everything. I can't hide my crying eyes. I'm a mess, but I'm here. And the lighting, I'm sorry, the lighting is so bad. So I hope that my voice is coming out through the darkness in this room to somehow illuminate the Friday, because I can't see. It's so dark. So with all of these factors working against me, I'm still dedicated to coming up with a Friday Reads video. So here we go. And the main things I want to talk about today, I want to talk for a minute about Alice Munro, who passed away this week. And then my actual reading, which mainly I want to focus on the one book that blew me away this week. And we'll get to that momentarily. So first of all, let's talk about Alice Munro for a minute. And she is a Canadian writer who passed away this week at the age of 92 and is regarded as one of the best short story writers of our era. And I have here, this is my little Alice Munro collection. I have 7 of her short story collections. In her lifetime, she did write one novel, but everything else was short stories. And so I don't have nearly all of them, but these are the ones I have, and I have loved each and every one of these collections. The one that I just recently got at a thrift store, I have not read all of those yet. She is one of those short story writers where the whole collection is excellent. It's not like there's 1 or 2 stories over time that you love. I have a lot of writers like that, where I have a certain story or two that person's written that I read over and over again. But her books, you just open them up randomly, and whatever you read is going to be stellar. I'm going to include an article in the notes that came out this week. You may have seen it. I saw it a couple of different times this week, and somebody has collected, it's 20 or 25 of her stories that are available online with the links. And so if you are not familiar with Alice Munro, or maybe you are, but you would like to explore further, it's a really good assortment of stories from across her career that you can just easily click on and just delve right in. And she stopped publishing in the early 2000s. She basically retired, and nothing's come out in the past, I don't know, 15-ish years. But she produced a really excellent body of work before that time. And what I've been doing this week, just for fun to commemorate Alice Munro, is every day since I heard that she passed, I've been picking up a different one of my books and just reading one story, just opening it up, picking out a story at random, and just enjoying one story from each of the books that I have. And so far, let's see, these are the 3 I've done so far, and I'm still going. So I read from The Love of a Good Woman. I read the story, I think this was the one with the Cortez Island. And as soon as I started it, I remembered having read it before. And it is a story about a young woman who's recently married. She and her husband are just getting started, and they're living in a crappy basement apartment, and with a crazy landlady. The landlady's just a real piece of work and a serious gaslighter, and she takes on a part-time job person sitting for this lady's husband, who is an older man who's had a stroke. and they kind of develop, she's reading to him out loud, and they've developed a communication method because he's become nonverbal, but he leads her towards an interesting revelation. From the collection Runaway, I read a story called Trespasses, which I picked out just because I like that word, trespasses. And I probably have read this story. It was vaguely familiar, but I didn't remember the details. But it is about a young girl who becomes friends with a woman who works at a hotel. She's kind of a lonely kid with non-traditional parents, and she begins hanging out with this lady that works the desk at a hotel. And gradually, this woman begins to reveal some rather bizarre things to her that have to do with her own personal life and her parents. That's all I'm going to say. But it's one of those stories that starts at the end with a scene from the end, and then you got to read the whole story to find out why this group of people was together and what they were doing. Beautifully crafted. Something that she's really wonderful at is now this story did have kind of a funky plot, but a lot of times there's not a whole lot of plot, but so much character. And you know I'm a character reader, and she just creates so much interest and so many layers and depths in people in just a few pages that it's unbelievable. The other one I read was, this is the one I found recently at a thrift store, The View from Castle Rock. And in here, let me see. I read this story, Hired Girl, and it is about a teenage girl who takes a summer job with a rich family who has a summer house on an island. These all take place in Canada. Being a maid, she has that vantage point of observing a lot, hearing a lot. She's filtering it all through her young age, and she's in a new setting because back at home they have had hired girls, but now she is the hired girl, and she finds out some family stuff about these people, and she has some very interesting conversations with an older member of the family who is suffering memory loss, who mistakes her for various other people, and in that capacity she hears some interesting tidbits. So that's the one I read from there. And I'm going to continue this until I read a story from each of my books. So I also have Dear Life, The Beggar Maid, which I think was her first collection. Woo! Oh, dropping everything. Too Much Happiness, and Hateship, Friendship, Courtship, Loveship, Marriage. And I included that title story in my Shorty September last year. And you better believe Alice Munro will be in Shorty September this year as well. So in addition to drifting through my Alice Munro books, I did finish and returned to the library already some books I talked about over the past couple of weeks. Poetry Unbound, which took me a month and a half to read, and I loved it so much that I sat down and ordered my own copy before I relinquished it to the library, so that I know there will just be a small gap, and then the book will come back to me once again, because I'm not finished with it. I need to go back through. I want to read a bunch of them again. I want to read the essays again. There are some that I wasn't in the mood for that I read and didn't really read the whole essay, and I want to go back, and because poetry, you know how it is, a different one can hit you differently on different days, and so I just need that anthology in my house so that I can dip in and out. Oh my gosh, the biggest crow you have ever seen just landed in my yard. Oh, and it's terrorizing a smaller bird. The crowing is happening in my yard. It is drama in real life. Oh my goodness. Fly away, little bird. Fly away. That thing's gonna eat you. Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm trying to regain my composure, but there's always something crazy going on in my backyard. So also the Anti-Racist Kitchen, which I really enjoyed as well, has gone whoop back to the library. And I also did finish reading and discussing Gathering Blue from the Giver Quartet. And we're going to read the final book in this. Now I have the big collected one from the library. So we have read 3 of the books. Michael Clark and I have been reading these kind of off and on this year. Lois Lowry's quartet of different dystopian visions of alternative societies. And it's sort of a multiverse because all of these places that kind of coexist at the same time, and there's some overlap in characters. And a lot of people have read The Giver, but not everyone has read the rest of the quartet. So we read those three, and then the last one is one I have never read called Sun. And so I will be reading Sun, and we're going to start that in a few days, and that will be the final book in this little reading project. Which brings me to the star of the week, which was All My Puny Sorrows by Miriam Toews. So this cover is really, I've seen a few different covers for this. I don't know if this is, I think this is the original cover. This looks like a first edition. And Stephen saw this and he said, oh, that book looks really old. And I said, no, it's not. It's only 10 years old. It just has this vintage sort of picture. And you can see there is a woman on a piano on a cliff. This is a book narrated by Yolandi, or Yoli as her family calls her, and her relationship with her sister Elf. Yoli is a younger sister. They're in their 40s. They're about 6 years apart. So Yoli has always looked up to Elf, idolized her. And on the surface, Elf is the successful one. She has a wonderful husband. She is incredibly talented. She is a concert pianist who is renowned for her skills. And Yoli doesn't have it quite as much together. She is in the middle of her second divorce. She has 2 teenagers. She has kind of disastrous choices in men. And she's a writer, and she has been successful with a series about, kind of a young adult series about a rodeo girl, but she's trying to write an adult novel, and she carries it around this entire book in a shopping bag, kind of obsessed with it but afraid of it at the same time, and won't let anybody read any of it. And she's trying to make that transition. So she doesn't feel successful, but in my estimation, she is absolutely a fantastic and amazing woman. And I'll get back to that in a second. But the heart of this book is that Elfrida, or Elf, is suicidal. She has survived a number of suicide attempts, and she is dedicated to completing this task. And Yoli's dedicated to trying to talk her out of it and convince her that she should live. And I know that sounds incredibly dark, but this is actually an incredibly warm book as well. It is dark, but it's also heartrending. It's hilarious. Yoli's voice, I just love this character. I feel like I'm rambling and talking all over the place, but let me just set this down and tell you. This book, this is one of those books, you know, you read a lot of books and they're pretty good, or they're really good, or they're not so good, and then maybe a few books a year just tear you up. And this was one of them. If I thought about my year so far, I know if I look at my journal, I will see several books that I have starred as the ones that I've really, really loved. But if someone just said, what's the best books you read this year? 2 books immediately come to mind, and those are James and All My Puny Sorrows. And those are the books that they just tear you apart. This book wrecked me. It just disassembled me and then tried to put me back together, but there are visible seams and scars and dents. It put a dent in my soul, and I will be reading it again. It is absolutely beautiful and absolutely devastating, and it just kind of wrecked me. So plot-wise, it is about Elf, most of the time in the story, being in the hospital having attempted suicide, and Yoli trying to get through to her and try to figure out why is this happening? Why does she not want to live? Please, would you stay with us? But it's also about their whole life. It's about their family legacy of mental illness and suicide, because Elf is not the first suicidal person in this family. It's about their background growing up in this very small Mennonite village that was extremely restrictive, and Elf, this kind of iconoclastic person that just is full of energy and life and wants to break out of this place, and she has this amazing talent. They're not even supposed to have musical instruments in their home, and they have this contraband piano, and there's this incredible scene where she just revolts against these elders from the village that come to visit to talk about these wayward daughters, and she just starts blasting out Rachmaninoff from the hidden piano in another room in the middle of the meeting. And there's just the two sisters, and there's another pair of sisters, Yoli and Elf's mom, and her sister Tina, their aunt. It's another incredible sister pair. And so there's this duality too, where Yoli is observing that pair of older sisters, and then she and her sister. And it's also about just juggling 1,000 things in life while all of this shit is going down. And I could really relate to that as well. And there's my absolute favorite passage that I've read a million times. I can't share with you because it's kind of a spoiler. A couple other things I would like to share. So as I mentioned, Yoli has these two teenagers. The older one, Will, is in college, and then the younger one, Nora, is 14, although she will quickly correct you that she is about to turn 15. And Yoli's kind of worried because she keeps having to leave them in Toronto and go to Winnipeg because of her sister's illnesses. And so she's got that worried, what's going on in my house while I'm gone. The apartment's falling apart. There's ants. There's a stopped up toilet. Her daughter has this Swedish boyfriend who seems to be around a lot. She kind of gets her older son to come home on a holiday break and keep an eye on the younger one, but she's always kind of worried about what the heck's going on at my house. And she worries that she's not a good parent. I think Yoli is a spot on mom, because she worries, in my estimation, about the right things to about the right amount, and then she does not overreact to a lot of other things. And just the nature of her kids in their brief moments on screen in this book, and the fact that they are really tuned into her, and they're really, really concerned about what's going on with their aunt. Did you see the cameo? Hi, Moo. Moo's here. There's just this, all these family members, just the love and the warmth and the humor between them. But here's a little section. Yoli is writing a letter to her sister Elf, and she's talking about her daughter Nora. We miss you. Nora asked me if I regretted having children, which shocked me and made me feel like a terrible mother, like I'd been giving her the impression that she was slowly crushing the life right out of me. But then she went on to say she was thinking of never getting pregnant because she couldn't bear the thought of her body housing an alien and ballooning into some grotesque caricature of womanhood. I hope she doesn't have an eating disorder. I've read that eating disorders are often the fault of overbearing mothers, but I'm so underbearing it's not even funny. Maybe she's imagined an overbearing mother to compensate for my lack of bearing, and it's this imaginary pushy mother that's caused her to have an eating disorder. She doesn't have an eating disorder, not really. I shouldn't try to blame something that doesn't even exist on an imagined imaginary mother. I try to remember how skinny you were when you were her age. You still are. So that's just an example of the machinations of Yoli's mind, including worrying about imaginary effects. If she imagining that her daughter has conjured up a different mother, and then this mother has given her a mental illness. So just Yoli, even like her terrible choice in men. Although I have to say, if you have read this book, I think that she did not give an adequate chance to Jason the mechanic. So I'm not going to spoil and just get into what happened there, but I liked him, and I think she should have given him a little more of a shot. So you can tell me if you agree if you've read this book. The other passage that I want to share, this is a more serious passage, and there's a lot in this book that takes place in hospital settings, and it is getting darker and darker. Now, it's raining so hard, and I feel like I am I'm filming from the back of a cave, but I don't know. I hope you can see me and hear me. But anyway, they're in the hospital, and the aggravation of dealing with people in the hospital. Now, she is careful to not blame everybody that works in hospitals for these frustrations. But that whole thing where you have to wait around all day to try to catch in passing a doctor to get some kind of an update of what's going on with your loved one, and then those interactions often being really unsatisfying. And that I can relate to from recent events in our family life. But in this case, she's been waiting and waiting to talk to this psychiatrist who finally comes around, and then he is really dismissive and disinterested. Basically, the fact that Elf won't participate in the way that he wishes or that would be convenient for him in her recovery, he just kind of basically says, well, I don't have time for this, and her, she doesn't feel like talking or whatever. And Yoli just rips him a new one. And she just goes off on this big rant that I absolutely loved. And then later she's reflecting on it, and she's imagining what she wishes would happen. And I think that all of us have had this at some point, where there's some kind of frustrating medical situation and you just feel like there's nobody who's really on your side, who's really interested in solving the mystery of what is going on. This is what she thought about, and this really resonated with me and maybe with you as well. And I thought it was also a great passage to read for Mental Health May. Imagine a psychiatrist sitting down with a broken human being saying, I am here for you. I am committed to your care. I want to make you feel better. I want to return your joy to you. I don't know how I will do it, but I will find out, and then I will apply 100% of my abilities, my training, my compassion, and my curiosity to your health, to your well-being, to your joy. I am here for you, and I will work very hard to help you. I promise. If I fail, it'll be my failure, not yours. I am the professional. I am the expert. You are experiencing great pain right now, and it is my job and my mission to cure you from your pain. I am absolutely committed to your care. I know you are suffering. I know you're afraid. I love you. I want to cure you, and I won't stop trying to help you. You are my patient. I am your doctor. You are my patient. Imagine a doctor phoning you at all hours of the day and night to tell you that he or she had been reading some new stuff on the subject of whatever and was really excited about how it might help you. Imagine a doctor calling you in an important meeting and saying, listen, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I've been thinking really hard about your problems and I'd like to try something completely new. I need to see you immediately. I'm absolutely committed to your care. I think this might help you. I won't give up on you. Oh my gosh. Okay, this book. And then the whole section at the end, like the last, I don't know how many pages, but just when you think, okay, well, this is it. This is like going to be the culmination of all this. There's a whole extra part at the end that is absolutely where you start to get healed, and Miriam Toews starts to glue you, the reader, back together from the experience of reading this book. And all I have to just mention in there, for those who have read it, the scene at the museum exhibit and Yoli's mother and the installation piece with the nude people. Okay, just read it if you have not read it. Where have I been? Where have I been? This book is 10 years old. What has been going on that I just now stumbled into this at the library book sale? Because thank goodness I own this book, because I need it around because I have to read it again. Now, what else do I need to read by Miriam Toews? I know Women Talking. Is there something else that I should put high up on my list? Because I've got to go on a tear now. It's like the Colm Toybean tear that got started. I've got to go on a Miriam Toews tear, and then reading the interviews with her and how this was inspired by her own family history. Oh, all of it, just all of it. Don't read those until you've read the book. But absolutely, All My Puny Sorrows. Everybody who put something in the comments that got excited when they saw that I got this book. Nobody exaggerated. It was absolutely, absolutely breathtaking. I love this book. All right, so how do I follow that up? What am I reading now? Oh, just some book that a couple of people have liked called Their Eyes Were Watching God. It's a reread, so, I'm not going into it blind. I know it's another powerful novel. I also started my next Kate Atkinson book, started early, took my dog. In my memory, this was not the strongest one in the series, but I have started it, and I think I'll enjoy it whether or not it's the best one of the bunch, because I just like that series. And that's what's going on. And this is the first hard rain we've had in a while, so I guess that's a good thing. So I'm just going to have a nice rainy day with my friend Moo here. I hope that you are well and that you have a great weekend. Let me know what you have been reading, watching. I didn't talk about shows, but we finished Schitt's Creek, our rewatch. Still moving into the last season of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I watched The Shining Girls last week. That was really good. And I just started Heartstopper. And oh, that is what a joy and a delight that is. I've only seen the first couple episodes. So that's what's going on. Tell me what's going on with you, and I'll be back on Tuesday. Bye-bye.